Avengers Civil War. Team Captain America versus Team
Iron Man.
One side trying to avenge his parents, and the other trying to protect his friend. So let's talk about it. So the movie starts, and the first thing we see is this guy ramming into a military base, and his teammates pull up spraying, and we got this guy trying to ore farm. Bro, the Avengers are 10 seconds away. Cut it out. And now we see these boys are shooting tear gas into the building, and they coldly walk in. But y'all remember what I said about all that ore farming, right? Cap drops in from the top rope, killing this guy because that helmet is not protecting him from the force he just received. And then Steve kicks the truck at this goon. Bro, what are you on? Look at how Manso's running up on you. I can promise you, he don't hit those. But better safe than sorry. Steve throws the shit at this guy and jumps onto the truck to hit a Rey Mysterio drop kick. And now we see Falcon, if you will. You said just Falcon? My bad. And Falcon gets himself a two-piece and then smokes this fool. And now Wanda pulls up, using the force on this guy and pulling him into a double team. And the team-ups don't stop there. Wanda chucks Steve into the building and he smacks this guy, pulls off the mask and hits a Taekwondo back kick. But there's still more ops. But Steve is feeling saucy and he Bing Nah, Steve has this man doing the NLE chopper and then hits him with a Spartan kick. Another goon runs up, trying to slide for his boy, but Steve grabs him by the ankle and slams him into a pillar. The enemy should have read the scouting report because there's no way you thought these puny little guns would hurt Steve. Back to Wanda, she's taking care of the gas and Falcon has her covered and he starts ore farming just because. The baddie wasn't even looking. This is just pure love for the game. We check on Crossbones and he's leaving with his crew, and unlucky for them, Steve knows what they took, and now we see Black Widow and she Nah, bro, that was not on purpose. And if it was, why? There was more efficient ways to take this fool out. But nonetheless, Widow shocks this guy and uses his body to dropkick this guy and then hits a DDT. Buddy over here tries running away, but Widow kicks the door into man's skull. Another imbecile runs up, but he gets his gun snatched and thrown. Idiot. And the next guy gets that same treatment, and so does the next guy and the next guy. Widow runs on top of the truck. Hold on. Ain't no way. She used Buddy as a footstool. Was the CTE not enough? Widow shocks this guy, and I gotta be real, that pose is not it. You gotta come harder than that. And this guy feels the same way. He grabs Widow, and they start boxing, and Widow ends up shocking him.
I don't work like that no more.
Nah, I know her heart dropped, and then she gets thrown into the insurgent. Had both guards confused. Fire in the hole! This bozo stands up just to get double kicked to the roof, and Widow uses this poor guy as a meat shield, but it saved her life. Now we go back to Steve, and he gets a grenade launcher shot at him, blasting him back, and the busting's not done because Vance is letting it rip once again, blasting Steve away. Bro, I would have been on the ground like these, or more so like this. We go back to Crossbones, and these boys leave the truck. Falcon pulls up giving recon, and Black Widow pulls up on the motorcycle, chasing the goons. Cap pulls up, and he's looking for Steve throws his shield to the sky, but gets punched from behind, and Crossbones walks out, oozing bloodlust. I've been waiting for this! Sending Steve flying. We check on Widow and Falcon's men are empty-handed. But as for Widow, she vaults the laundry, flips over the geezer, jumps over this dude, and tackles the target. He pulls up the stick, but Widow disarms him with ease, and starts destroying his ribs.
I've got you in my sights.
Bro, when I first seen this part, I was like,
how do you know? How do you know?
But if you use your Sharingan, you'll see that Widow turned her head mid-combo. Impressive. And then Widow trips Vance to the floor, jumps on the other, hitting both these fools with a Hurricane Rana, does a kick wheel, picks the other guy up, just to send him back to the floor, goes for the gun, but now it's a Texas standoff. And the other guy is threatening to drop the potion, but Falcon comes from the back, shooting this bum, and Widow shoots this bum, and catches the potion, and that's jolly and all, but Steve is still brawling, and he was holding his own. That was until he gets hit with a and an overhand. Crossbones pins Steve to the wall. Manzo's shook, and I can't blame him. I would have been shivering me timbers. Cap leaves the knife, grabs the arm, transitions to an elbow, and snatches the gauntlet, but apparently it was still one get one free, and he's wasting it. Hold the spin kick. Steve starts walking up, and Crossbones takes off the mask, revealing he has that Savitar treatment, and it was so bad he decided to self-destruct, but it gets contained by Wanda. She brings Mans to the sky, causing the destruction of this building. And why is she shocked? This might be a hot take, but Wanda barely did anything this whole section. I mean, sure, she took care of the tear gas. Opening a window would have done the same thing, but we'll let her have that. But open shot, fate of the universe on the line. Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth, and you fold? I want Iguodala. But let's fast forward to the airport war. We start off with Captain America parking in this garage, and I'm already annoyed. Bro, what is this parking? Steve, you have all that space on the right. Use it. Captain hops out, and he meets up with Hawkeye and that no skill bum Wanda. Hawkeye opens the van, revealing what's this guy's name again? Bro, I truly don't remember. And they didn't say his name not once this conversation, but nonetheless, these boys get suited up. Steve hitting the slow walk before sprinting for the helicopter, but then it gets EMP'd. I know Steve's annoyed. This is Marvel Rivals, but you still have to deal with Sombra players? I'm gonna off myself. And then we see the EMP came from Tony Stark, and he pulled up with Warhammer. But then the King of Wakanda pulls up, stealing the show. Look at Warhammer. He's shivering. That's why he still has the mask up. And then Black Widow pulls up, and I have so much to say. Where do I begin? Black Widow is...
All right, I ran out of patience.
Underoos!
And then Captain's shield gets webbed and snatched by none other than the fan favorite, Blue Beetle. Wait, no, that's Spider-Man. That pose is kind of hard though. And Tony starts giving it to Captain. You've been an idiot. Calling up Clint when Oliver Queen is clearly superior. Bringing that R2 merchant Wanda. Bro, you disgust me. You're tearing apart the Avengers.
They're not.
Now Tony has had enough, telling Steve.
Now we can do this the
easy
easy
way
way
or
or
the hard way. But little did Tony know, Steve was buying time because Falcon has found what he's looking for. Steve puts his hands up and Hawkeye shoots the webs. Had Tony shook. He immediately put that helmet on. And then we see Ant-Man was chilling on Captain America's shield. Peter's Spidey senses activate, but not fast enough as he gets hit with a bicycle kick. Bro, you are not Kaiser. And he got the shield back. So here's the plan. Iron Man goes for Wanda. Warhammer's gonna take on Steve. Oh, nah, bro. The fight didn't even start yet, and Warhammer is already going out sad. T'Challa is going after Bucky, and Peter's gonna do what Peter does best. We see Captain America chasing T'Challa, and he chucks his shield straight at the King's back, but the King gets up, only to be grabbed and thrown, and then we get this fire line.
Move, Captain. I won't ask a second time.
And he immediately comes in with 1, 2, 3 kicks. Bro, T'Challa, you gave him no time to make a decision. We check on Ant-Man, and he's shooting a shot with Black Widow. Maybe we can kick it sometime. Kick it? Bet. Black Widow kicks it off with a low blow, twists Ant-Man's arm, and tries to throw him, but Ant-Man goes soft mode, and don't get it twisted. He still has that strength, and he flips Black Widow, pinning her down, but then she activates her taser, sending Ant-Man flying, and now we go to Peter, and he's chasing Bucky and Falcon. Peter smashes through the glass, hitting Falcon with the Cobra Kai kick. Peter turns his sights to Bucky, catching his fist, got Bucky trembling. Nah, don't get scared now. This is what happens when you're a one-trick, and Spider-Man does not take this fool seriously. You have a metal arm? That's awesome. You're like an off-brand cyborg. All you're missing is the red eye. Hey man, but after I'm done with you, that shouldn't be an issue. Falcon comes in spearing Peter, taking Mans to the sky, but Peter is squirming and he breaks free. We check on Iron Man and he's shooting missiles at Wanda and Hawkeye. We go to Steve and T'Challa scratches the drip, goes for the killing blow, but Steve dodges by a hair, goes for a grab, but Steve said not today, follows up with the uppercut, and that's 3 straight air balls. T'Challa, you gotta make something shake. The King tries to backhand, but Steve read him like a book. T'Challa is now enraged. He jumps in the air, hitting straight backboard. Bro, come on T'Challa, why? Your ancestors are watching. Act like it. We go to Warhammer and he has his sights on Captain America, who finally got hit by T'Challa. Warhammer flies in, clashing baton and shield. We check on Iron Man and he pulls up on Hawkeye and Wanda starts hitting on Tony, talking about some, you locked me in my room. And I gotta be real, after playing Marvel Rivals, he should have kept you there. But Tony replies, I did it to protect you. Bro, that generic reply never works, but it's like every hero says it, and Wanda is not buying it. But who cares about her? Because we turn our sights to off-brand Oliver Queen, and he says, I never miss. I can't miss. And he fires a shot at Tony. Embarrassing.
Made you look.
And then Wanda starts dumping cars on Iron Man, and peep the hand movements. She's feeling herself as she crushes Iron Man, and all I'm thinking is, it must suck living in this universe. Imagine hopping off the clock only to find out your car was used as a dodgeball and didn't even hit the target. Bro, I'd be devastated. Bro, put me in Gotham, because at least they have some class. Back to Spidey, he's swinging, doing tricks, but Falcon starts busting, but he's straight airballing. Peter's on Falcon's tail, but then his Spidey senses activate, weaving the sign thrown by Bucky. Hey buddy, I think you lost it. Nah, bro. So you're gonna tell me Spider-Man doesn't kill? This is at least attempted murder. Bucky almost lost his neck because Peter wanted to be funny, but Falcon comes from the back, grabbing Peter, and Falcon is a better man than me. I would have been out of there. I am not about to have a losing record. But once again, the pest breaks free, and he webs Falcon's wings, sending him crashing through a small-owned business. Bro, I would hate the Avengers. Get them out of here. I'll take Thanos on myself. Matter of fact, I might just join them. Spider-Man webs Falcon to the rails and jumps off the top rope. Bucky runs in just to also get kicked. What was the game plan? You're telling me T'Challa is struggling to kill this? And Spider-Man even webs his arm. He's just a normal human now. But we see Falcon activating something, and his mini plane comes to the rescue, grabbing Peter and throwing him out the building. Back to Warhammer, he gets hit with a, what do you even call this? It's saucy though. Got Man standing on the ground, and Steve gives that same treatment to the King. Ant-Man pulls up, giving Steve a toy car, and tells him to throw it at the Beyblade. Steve does it, and the truck gets enlarged, heading straight for Warhammer. But lucky for him, the truck blew up. We see Hawkeye and Wanda running. Well, actually, it's more so a brisk jog, because Wanda's not covering any distance. And then we see they get joined by the other Avengers, and these boys are booking it. Nah, bro. How is Wanda neck to neck with Cap? You're telling me she caught up to Captain America in the span of 0.4 seconds? But I gotta let it slide, because their path gets blocked by a laser that was shot by eyesight. And Iron Man's team starts pulling up. Warhammer, Spidey, Black Widow, Iron Man, and the King of Wakanda versus Falcon, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Steve, Wanda, and Bucky. Both teams starts walking up, and then they turn up the heat, and now they're full on sprinting, beginning to brawl. Tony comes in hitting a Superman punch, only to be met with straight backboard. Bucky gets speared by T'Challa, giving Mans a new identity. Steve clocks Tony with a left, and Warhammer is chasing Falcon. Bucky gets his hit back, but somehow it looks like he took damage. Tony clocks Steve with a right, but Steve hits Mans with a... and Tony got shot by Hawkeye, blowing him back. And we see Black Widow having a rematch, Peter swinging, dodging Wanda, and Black Panther faced with Bucky. The King gets up, running at Bucky, but gets met with a right and an uppercut, knocking Mans... Nah, bro. Man's turned into Shawn Michaels. We see Black Widow brawling with... Actually, hold on. I gotta find out her real name. Natalia Romanoff. But it says she also goes by Natasha. We see Natasha brawling with... Actually, no. It doesn't roll off the tongue right. We'll just stick with Black Widow. We see Black Widow brawling with Clint, and he throws her to the ground. And Black Widow says...
We're still friends, right?
As long as there's benefits. And then Natasha puts Mans in an armbar and proceeds to throw him. And she was about to hit Mans with a sweet chin music. But Wanda came to the rescue and sends Black Widow flying.
You were pulling your punches.
I ain't gonna lie.
Me and you are meant to be. You getting sexier and sexier. You are for me. You know what I'm saying? I want you.
Back to business. We see T'Challa and Bucky grabbing each other's throats, but T'Challa hits Bucky with a knee, activating a cutscene with Bucky telling the king, I didn't kill your father.
Then why did you run?
Now, to be fair, if I seen a man in an all Black Panther suit, fueled by anger, chasing me, you think I'm gonna sit there expecting a normal conversation? Bucky frees his hand, tries punching the king, but gets grabbed, rolled to the floor, and hit with the Trouble in Paradise, sending man to the ground. And now it's time. T'Challa whips out the claws and goes for the kill, but gets stopped by Wanda. Bro, Wanda, you doing? Like, instead of what are you doing, I said Wanda, you doing? Because her name is Wanda, and it's like a play on words because...
Shut up.
And Wanda turns Black Panther into a penguin, the way she sent man's flying. But we transition to Peter, who gets his web cut by Steve. Look here, you Blue Beetle ripoff. Blue Beetle ripoff? There's a lot going on that you don't understand. Ah, Tony said you would say that. Webs the shield and the ankles. Pulls Steve. I don't know what you call this move, but all I know is that Steve had a foot long in his face, causing Mans to become one with the ground. Steve gets up, running to his shield. Nice try, bud. But Captain America hits a reversal, sending Peter flying. We see Falcon ducking and dodging smoke from Tony, but then they show us Hawkeye, who I just found out is left-handed, and he's about to hit a tag team combo, which I call Ant-Eye, or maybe Ant-Hawk, or Hawk-Ant. But whatever. Hawkeye lets it rip, and that one arrow turns to a lot, catching Tony's attention, and the arrow starts self-destructing, giving Ant-Man the boost he needs, and he sneaks into Tony's suit. But back to Peter, he tries grabbing Steve's shield, but Steve pulls Peter in by his webs, and nah, Steve is looking like, this is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you. As he hits Peter with a backhand, Peter swings to the high ground, gaining momentum for his finishing blow. Spider-Man hits a backflip, starts swinging to Steve, shooting a web that Steve easily dodges, and then Peter goes out sad, because ain't no way you just got hit with a Zack Ryder Rough Rider, and then Steve hits the column, causing the whole building to fall on Peter. Andrew could never. We go to Hawkeye, and he's busting at Tony, and unfortunately for Tony, his suit is having some small technical difficulties, leaving Tony in confusion, and then we see Ant-Man ripping apart Tony's suit, so Tony decides to air it out, causing Ant-Man to hit the dash, but he gets blown out. We see Cap and Bucky, and they're trying to Scooby-Doo, and lucky for them, Falcon can help with that, and now it's time to make big plays. We see Ant-Man, and he jumps on Warhammer, and then he cranks it up, going full on Godzilla, and grabs Warhammer, but Iron Man is not gonna let that slide, causing Ant-Man to throw Warhammer, but Peter catches him. That was excellent team play, and Ant-Man is causing destruction. He even had the king shook, but he gets saved by this guy, who I believe is called Eyesight, but we can't worry about that right now, because T'Challa sees Bucky and Cap running. But back to Ant-Man, and he's ripping off a wing of a plane, and throws it at Tony, who barely manages to dodge it, but then gets by Falcon. And now we get the King of Wakanda versus Ant-Man. Ant-Man throws a kick, causing T'Challa to hit the ground, and Black Panther was cooked. He wasn't even standing anymore, but lucky for the King of Wakanda, someone starts firing missiles, and it was Warhammer, and Peter pulled up with him, hitting Mans with a headshot. But now we get T'Challa versus Clint. Weave, do a random flip, catch the arrows for Aura. But the King of Wakanda eats that explosion, and he stands, whipping out the claws and effects, to which Clint replies,
Hi, my name's Sheldon.
I don't care.
Clint runs up, hitting a 360 swing, gets blocked, hits a reverse, creating distance. But T'Challa comes back in, kicking Hawkeye into a transition, and now we're with Warhammer, who gets stalked by Ant-Man, but then he uses his ultimate, destroying Ant-Man's weapon of choice, and evades the stomp out, only to be hit by Wanda. We check on Peter, and bro, what are you doing? Eyesight runs up, hitting his best Sonic impression, that knocks Ant-Man back, and then we see Bucky and Steve closing in on Freedom, and so does Black Panther. He elbows Hawkeye, and hits him with a double kick, and books it. Back to Eyesight, he phases through Ant-Man, breaking down this building, and it's gonna block Steve and Bucky's path, but Wanda clutches up, and Warhammer pulls up playing that heat, causing Scarlet to lose focus, but Captain and Bucky still make it through, and they're met by Black Widow. She puts her wrist up, and holds Black Panther. Man, I'd be devastated. We check on Peter, and he starts tying Ant-Man's legs together, and Warhammer and Tony hit the finishing blow, but Peter gets smacked in the process, and Tony pulls up, telling Mans he's benched. Back to the King of Wakanda! He's getting spammed by Widow, but he powers through, and jumps on the aircraft, but grabbing the wheel was not enough, and they get away, and Black Widow says,
I said I'd help you find him, not catch him. There's a difference.
Nah, bro, if I was Black Panther, I'm gonna be eating spider kebab. We check on Steve, and Warhammer's on his tail, and so is Tony, but Falcon's on their tail, and he starts busting, but Warhammer tells Eyesight to throw an alley-oop, but Falcon weaves the shot, and Warhammer gets hit instead, falling to his doom. Falcon gives his condolences. Tony's on timing. Eyesight pulls up, seeing what he caused, all because he was focused on the cat. Like, yeah, Scarlett's a baddie, but accidentally paralyze your friend type of baddie? I don't think so. And that's how the airport war ends. But the Civil War isn't over yet. We fast forward, and Steve, Bucky, and Tony are all on a mission. And the guy they were looking for starts playing a video, and it intrigues Tony because what he sees is familiar. Tony's dad crashes into a tree, but that isn't what killed him. No, because Bucky comes walking out, grips Tony's dad by the dome. Tony turns to Bucky, and it's looking like that one RDC skit. Back to the video. 1, 2, sending man to the ground, and then Bucky picks Tony's dad up and sits him in the car, and his wife had a front row seat, but Bucky said no witnesses. He grabs Tony's mom by her throat and starts squeezing, ending her life, and then looks dead at the camera, confirming it was him. Tony tries charging at Bucky, but Steve is holding him back, and Tony turns to Steve, asking, did you know? And the truth is, he did know, and Tony responds by sitting man to the ground. Bucky pulls out the stick, predictable, catches the left, switches to a throat grab, and takes man to the sky, just to slam him to the ground, step on the metal arm, and Tony almost got the quickest get back of all time, but Steve chucks his shield and rams into Tony, to which Tony replies,
not too bad, but I can do better.
And flies at Cap, got him sliding like a hockey ring, and then Tony cuffs his ankles, taking mans out the fight. Bucky pulls up with an uppercut, doing 0 damage. Tony grabs Bucky by his collar, pins him against the wall, tries aiming the blasters, but Bucky grabs and breaks Tony's hand. Not even Tony could believe it, but Tony planned for this. You know he always has a backup, but Bucky gets that out of here, and we see Steve has broken free of the cuffs, running into action as the building starts to collapse, causing Iron Man to let Bucky go. And Steve tells Bucky get Ghost, but Iron Man is bloodlusted. He shoots up a prayer and misses by a hair, and then Steve pulls up and he says,
It wasn't him, Tony.
bro, what are you talking about? We have the footage in 4K. But he said that because Bucky was being mind controlled, but Tony isn't hearing none of that and tries flying at Bucky, only to be grabbed by the ankle, and Steve starts breaking it, but in the process, Tony breaks free, but now he's down a hand and a foot. But if Bucky's still breathing, the job's not done. Tony flies up, kicking Bucky, and now it's time for the bro, how did he get here so fast? But nonetheless, Steve grapples the wires to Tony's neck, turning Mans into a Fortnite glider. Tony collects his marbles and sees Bucky. Fool me once! And with Steve out the picture, Tony aims at Bucky, but his systems are tweaking, so Tony has no choice but to put on his best Hawkeye. He shoots and hits the target, closing Bucky's only escape. Tony flies up, hitting Bucky with a bada swing! Bucky weaves the 180, tries swinging, but Tony said no sir, and puts Bucky in a chokehold, asking him, do you even remember them? Do you even remember my parents? And Bucky does not just remember them, he remembers everyone. And Tony, for some reason, jumps off the ledge, and Steve spears Tony mid-air, looking like Edge, sending all 3 of them to the ground. Tony and Steve stand, with Steve telling Tony,
nothing changes and nothing changes.
To which Tony replies,
I don't care. He killed my mom.
and the brawl begins, and these boys are going hit for hit, and Steve puts the guy in an Iron Man suit in a headlock. Tony breaks free and pins Cap to the ground. Bucky sees this and also sees Steve's shield. Bucky comes from the top rope, hitting Tony from the back, and now it's time for the ultimate jumping. Peep the pass to Cap, weaves the right, jab into a broad kick. Oh, we getting saucy. Bucky kicks Tony, got Mance proposing, but peep the spin alley-oop, slamming it into Tony's ribs. Steve with the heavy left, let me get that back, but he gets blasted away by Tony, and now Tony and Bucky start going hit for hit, tit for tat, grabs the arm, and hits Tony with the cleanest punch straight in the chest, and peep the disrespect. All 5 fingers on the face, and then he starts ripping Iron Man's heart out, but Bucky didn't know that was another weapon, and Steve lets it rip, removing Bucky's metal arm, and then hits him with a key blast, sending Mans flying. Steve comes in, running at Tony, clashing shield and blaster, but Steve gets the upper hand and starts destroying Tony, and the suit starts talking to him. You can't beat him in hand-to-hand combat. Nah, bro. Hearing that must have sucked, but it doesn't take away the faith. Tony starts analyzing the fight pattern, all while Steve is beating the brakes off him, and peep the facial expression. Bro, I almost thought that Steve was the one trying to avenge his parents, but the countermeasures are ready. Tony catches the shield and blasts it away, and now Steve is back to slightly above average human level. Tony blasts Steve away, hits him with an uppercut and a key blast. Steve looks up and says,
He's my friend.
right, left, get out my presence. But Steve gets up, leaving Tony no choice but to go for the finishing blow. Get your filthy hands off me. But Cap uses that moment to his advantage, picking up Tony off the ground. Tony tries squirming, but that don't work, and he gets slammed to the pavement. And before I show this next part, I want to remind you guys, Captain America is not the one looking for revenge. So why is he beating the life out of Tony? And then removes his drip, got Tony scared for his life, and destroys the suit, officially saving Bucky, but is forced to leave the shield behind. And that's how the Civil War ends. Bro, believe it or not, this was my first time watching this whole movie, and it was a banger. If you want more Marvel videos, then leave a like, comment, subscribe. Peace.